During the break from sewing, I'm doing different crafts, but my brain is still thinking about what I'm going to sew next. Originally, the plan was to sew a pair of shorts. That was what I was going to do instead of the Pokemon cosplay. But then my partner asked me to do that, and I benched the shorts. Um, and I thought, oh, I'll just sew those when I have had a long enough break. During that break, I'm working on the cardigan still, the Halloween cardigan. I'm doing other crafts. When I'm crocheting, I like to find things to watch. I've talked about this during the pirate coat. I like to have just random things on in the background while I work up here in the craft room. But when I'm on the couch, I like it to be something that I'll actually be paying attention to a little bit. So I'll put on a movie or a TV show if I'm inclined to actually put in hours worth of my time to watch something. I tend to not want to watch new stuff anyway, but that's besides the point. Usually I'm on YouTube, and I don't remember what the first video was. I think it was Minji Lee. I am subscribed to her, and for whatever reason, YouTube decided to recommend me an older video of hers that I have seen before, one of her corset videos or stays. I don't really remember. That was probably 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. It happened almost immediately after my break started, my break from sewing. On top of seeing that video, it got me thinking about the cosplay project that I will be eventually doing. There is no set date for that one. My partner's dream cosplay is the white dress from the animated film The Swan Princess, one of her favorite films. And that white dress with the blue puff sleeves and the blue belt, and that's one of her dream dresses. And we started talking about this months ago. So I started brainstorming, pulling resources, looking online for different fabrics, seeing if they have the colors that I would need, so on and so forth. Compiling all of that into Millinote, including the patterns I would be using. Now, this was before, I'd never seen this movie before. It was not one of those movies I saw as a kid. But, a quick Google, and I found the images that I needed to get kind of an idea of what I wanted to do. The pattern that I had found, while has elements that definitely look similar, is too late of a time period. The film takes place in a fantasy medieval setting, and the pattern is very heavily influenced by the Tudors fashion of that time period. So if you've ever seen the TV show Tudors or the movie Anne Boleyn, picture that. And even though at the time I didn't realize that the time period was off, I was just looking at the elements that looked similar. And due to the fact that I like to have things be as historically accurate as I can achieve, I had also purchased a corset pattern. Well, not a corset pattern, a stays pattern. I know the two words are kind of synonymous nowadays, but stays actually predate corsets. Corsets are more from the, I think, mid to late 1800s and the early 1900s. So during the Victorian and Edwardian eras. Stays are an older style. I don't know the specific dates, but the stays, like I said, predate corsets, and before that there was something else. And basically in the medieval era, they did not wear what we would consider a corset today. they didn't wear anything close to what a corset or pair of stays looks like in the medieval era. So technically for the cosplay, I shouldn't be making one at all, but I probably still am. On top of me talking about all of this with her and showing her my patterns and all that kind of stuff, I had also offered to make her separately a corset, one that she can wear that is not part of a cosplay, uh, that she could wear over her clothes for Ren fairs or just for fashion's sake. So when you picture a corset, you picture that kind of hourglass shape. You know, it's wider at the top and at the hips, and it comes narrow in, and there's usually a busk down the front, which is those little tabs and little posts that you see on the front of corsets, and it gets laced up the back. Uh, Stays are more conical. They're wider at the top, narrow at the waist, and it doesn't go below the waist. There are tabs at the bottom, but it's not like have the pattern. Let me just show you. So this is the pattern that I would be using for her cosplay. As you can see, there we go. It's wider at the top, narrow at the waist, and then it flares out from the waist with these tabs. And while Boney might be running through these tabs, because they're separated, they're not tight around the hips like a corset would be. They also sit much lower at the bust. They basically stop at the widest part of your bust, the apex of your bust. They don't go over them like a corset might. Corsets don't always go over them, but I find that they seem to be a little bit higher on the bust than stays are. So I would use this pattern for the cosplay, and I would do a duct tape pattern for the other corset for her at some point, if she wants one. She doesn't have to have one, but I offered it to her. Now, all of this to say is that over the last few weeks, my brain was working on thinking about all of this stuff. I tend to just be thinking about stuff constantly, whether I'm going to be making it anytime soon or not. Her cosplay, her Odette cosplay, and the separate corset, none of that is anywhere near close to actually happening. I don't do stuff. I do it because I do love her, but she understands how much time and effort goes into my work, so she does pay for things. Like the Pokemon cosplay, she paid for the extra fabric, and then she also paid me for the work that I did. And it's the same for this cosplay. Whenever that cosplay happens, whenever the Odette cosplay happens, she will be buying the fabric, or I should paying for the fabric. Obviously, we haven't worked any of it out yet. And all the materials, all the additional materials I would need, and then pay me for my time whenever that happens. The duct tape pattern, though, is something I've never done before. That's what I'm trying to get to here. The duct tape pattern. I've never done a duct tape pattern before. I've seen plenty of videos about it, and I watched more as my brain started working on this. But because I've never done one before, I was feeling a little nervous. And I got it in my head that I needed to do a practice run on making a duct tape corset. Not for her, though, for myself. I've never brought up the fact that I am trans. If you're, wise, you can tell that I am from my icon. I don't hide it. I've mentioned yarn colored trans colors before. I am a trans man. I have worn corsets and bodices before. All of that was many years ago. None of it fits me anymore. But in my own journey, I've been a trans man for 7 years now, over 7 years. And my gender expression has changed a lot over the course of those years. When I first started, I definitely was very hyper masculine. And as I settled into things and I started to really find myself and my sense of style and what I like to wear, it has turned into the whimsical cottagecore, hobbit core aesthetic that I really like. Now, I don't go out enough to actually dress this way. For when I had a job, I would never dress like that for work. And usually, when I'm leaving the house, it's to run errands, and I find it a little pointless to dress up to go to the grocery store. So I don't actually dress the way that I really want to. But I am definitely more comfortable, wearing those things than I used to be. I used to hate skirts because when I still thought I was a girl, I felt like I had to wear them and I didn't like wearing them. I'm also fat. I am a large man, and as I was growing up, I was a large woman. I didn't like wearing skirts in the way that I thought I was supposed to, which was with just underwear and nothing else underneath. And because I was fat growing up, my thighs would touch and rub together, and it was very uncomfortable. And I didn't grow up in a hyper feminine household. My mom never imposed any kind of gender norms on me. This was all just from myself. I was a very shy and awkward kid growing up. And it was more so what I was seeing my peers do. Wearing short skirts and frilly tops and stuff like that. And I just didn't like any of that. Obviously, I eventually figured it out. But as a man, I'm much more comfortable with my femininity. The only issue is that I have not and probably will not get top surgery. I don't think it's something I want to do. Also, surgery is expensive and very scary. So I don't know if that's something that will ever happen in my future. The problem is, I definitely still worry about what strangers' perception of me will be. I definitely feel more confident dressing feminine while presenting masculine around my friends and my partner. And I also have nowhere to go in these kinds of clothes, usually anyway. But when thinking about wanting to do a duct tape corset, I was starting to feel, I guess, anxious. The corset is a very feminine shape. Wider at the bust, wider at the hips, and narrow at the waist. And while I may have used to look like that, since I've been on testosterone for almost 8 years now, I don't have a shape like that anymore. I might still have a larger chest because I also don't bind. I tried and I found it too uncomfortable and it never looked right anyway. It just looked like I was still wearing a sports bra. I worried wearing a corset would make me feel dysphoric. So I was thinking a lot over the last 3 weeks about what do I want to do? Do I want to do a duct tape corset to practice? Yes, I did want to do one. I wanted to figure out how to do it, how to put the tape on so that it would look correct. Not look correct. I wanted to figure out how to put the tape on so I could figure out how to make the pattern in the first place and all of those things. And there was tutorials. Sarah Spaceman, she has done a couple of videos on corsets with duct tape, doing the duct tape method. There are other people who have done other patterning with duct tape. So I understand in principle how it works. It's just the practice of it, the actually doing it that I was nervous about. So I kept thinking and thinking, and stays, as you saw on the pattern, they're more conical, cone shaped, and they're flat. They're very flat. They make you extremely flat. That, granted, they do push up the bust, That was the style. They were still tight. You wouldn't be tight lacing, which is uh, a common practice with corsets because of their shape. You don't tight lace with stays, but they do make you flatter. And the cone shape, if you were to make a pattern that was fit to your size, might not actually be a cone, it might be more of a tube. And there are versions of stays out there that are more straight up and down, less angled at the waist. So these are all things that I have been thinking about for weeks. There is a pattern, a YouTube video, and a matching pattern made by the same person that is that more tube shape, and it's very flat. Uh, I didn't, I couldn't afford the pattern. It was a little expensive, and also I've had negative experiences with multi-size patterns where you got to have like a special program to be able to get the right size and be the only size on the paper, so you can then print it. I it was a whole thing before, and I was just like, I'm not doing that again. I know it was what was going to happen, and I'm not doing that again. Yesterday, my partner came over, and I had asked her previously if she would help me with a duct tape pattern. And of course, she said yes. I had been talking about this with her before, and knowing that I had nothing planned for this week for me to work on for a video, I had kind of set myself that this was what I was going to work on this week. There's no other crafts that I really want to do. I want to sew something again, so we did it yesterday. I was originally going to film, but I was feeling weird about it, and I decided not to. Not filming it made it a lot easier for me to do. The pattern was originally in 3 pieces. It was a front, a side, and a back piece. But this pile of paper here is the results of me working on it for probably an hour, just trying to figure out what I wanted. Because the duct tape pattern, because of the fact that it's duct tape, will fit your shape more. But stays don't really do that. They tend to be, as I've been saying, flat. For the last hour or so, I've been working with my duct tape pattern and on paper, trying to get something close to what I want. There's a tutorial by Morgan Donner, a recent tutorial, titled How to Make Your Own Stays Pattern Off of Historical Originals. Great tutorial. I've watched it a handful of times now. It's literally open right now because I kept looking at it while working. Her method, while good, wasn't working out for me. It was, just taking your measurements and using the tape measure and having it be slightly curved for the top and the bottom of your bust and your waist, and then connecting the lines, and it just wasn't working for me, and it kept being not the right size. And that's not even like the main pattern, that's just part of it. They kind of give you a guide to then look at, flat laid out images of extant garments and all that kind of stuff. So it just wasn't working out for me, and I quickly gave up on that as an option. My duct tape pattern, like I said, was much more fit to my form, and I also wanted it to sit a little higher. There's this pattern on Etsy, on one of the Discord servers that I'm on, is for like sewing and stuff like that. A lot of historical stuff. And I remember somebody talking about a pattern that they saw that somebody made where it's a boned binder. This Discord server I'm on has a lot of people part of the LGBTQ plus community. And I actually found that pattern again in my research for these last few weeks. Now, it wasn't something that I wanted to do, and I actually looked at it again, and the pattern doesn't come large enough for me. I did kind of like the look of it a little bit. It's much like how modern binders are. It's got thick straps over the shoulders, sits very high. It's also long to the hip, and I didn't like a lot of that. I still wanted something that looked vaguely historical in some way. While the visuals and seeing where the boning goes helped a little bit to maybe make this a little bit flatter on me, it wasn't exactly what I wanted. All of that has been on my mind as I've been working on this. My duct tape patterns in many pieces, more than when I started. We've got front piece here, and I wanted it to be nice and long. Usually you put duct tape on, you wrap yourself in cling film and then you do the duct tape. I knew I would get extremely hot like that, so I decided to use an old t-shirt that I was going to get rid of anyway. So the front and the side pieces got cut up a couple of times. It originally was much longer, and I realized that that wasn't quite right, so I cut it up a bunch. The back is still the same, just kind of square. My pattern pieces, I made the front much wider and straighter. The side is much smaller, and you can see all of my lines as I tried to work it out, and the back is still about the same. That's basically where I've left off before I hit record. I just needed time to work on it without worrying about the camera being on and just figure everything out. Now that I'm at this point, I think it's time for me to start sewing up my first mock-up. I'm going to use some fabric I don't care about. It's actually the leftover fabric from the Pokemon cosplay. I realize that this already is a very long video. It'll probably be in 2 parts, just to save you guys from having to sit through all of this, just to get to the sewing part, which might also take a long time. So yeah, I'm going to make this a 2-part video. I had thought that I should probably do that, but I wasn't sure if it would actually happen, and it is in fact long as it is right now. So this is going to be part 1. I don't know if it's going to be posted maybe a day early or posted a week before part 2. We'll see how things go. You'll know, because if it's posted on a Saturday, you'll know you'll be getting part 2 on Sunday, that very next day. Tomorrow for you, if it is on Saturday. If not, you will see part 2 next week. I think that's all for now. Thank you all so much for watching this rambly video with nothing of substance in it. It doesn't feel right to do my normal spiel on a video like this. But thank you so much for watching. If you like crochet, sewing, or any other kinds of crafts, please consider a follow. I upload every Sunday, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.